What does it mean to be a person? What does it mean to be a woman? Identity and the nature of oneself are always being questioned and defined through culture and theory. Simone de Beauvoir once said, "One is not born a woman, but rather becomes one." On the surface, Tibetan Buddhism and Western feminism don't appear to have much commonality, but in fact, combining the two may help define what it means to be a person and to be a woman in contemporary Western and traditional Buddhist culture. Buddhists and feminists share important common ground in the questioning of selfhood, which is a central theme to both. They are dedicated to the interaction of theory and experience, and both have appeared on the Western intellectual landscape at approximately the same time. Anne Klein, an eminent scholar of Tibetan Buddhism, presents a new approach to the conversation between Buddhism and feminist thought, constructed around the great blissqueen, with identity as a central theme. In the following videography, I will discuss how feminism and Buddhism relate, who the great blissqueen is, and how to overcome various dualisms. Anne Klein enrolled in the first Buddhist Studies academic program in the United States in 1969 at the University of Wisconsin. Driven by questions of personhood, identity, and the epistemology of intellectual and personal development, Klein continued to study Buddhism in the graduate program at the University of Virginia. She also spent time traveling to Asia until she discovered the Women's Studies and Religion program at Harvard. In her book, Meeting the Great Blissqueen, the Blissqueen is presented as a bridge between the two philosophical positions of subjectivity. Feminist theory moves between two important convictions. One, that essential commonalities among women exist and can be discovered, and two, that gender and all experiences associated with it are cultural constructions. With essentialism, women are the feminine essence, and in constructionalism, a woman becomes a woman as a result of her cultural and political context. Klein describes four basic positions in feminist and Buddhist reflection: discovery, developmental, essentialist, and postmodern. Discovery emphasizes that our highest potential only awaits discovery, whereas the developmental position says we are separate from our own best possibilities and that we must therefore cultivate them carefully. The essentialist views us as either separate or connected through sameness, and the postmodern perspective views us connected through difference. The dilemma centers around the suggestion that a female sense of self is neither overly essentialized nor so contingently constructed that its existence is in question. In reframing the oppositional relationship, Tibetan Buddhist perspectives are useful for contemporary feminist debates and women's lives. The Great Blissqueen, a female figure of enlightenment, coalesces Western feminist reflection and Tibetan Buddhist culture with addressing questions about the status of women within as well as outside of those traditions. The Great Blissqueen, Yese Sojal, is part historical figure and part myth. She is a luminary in a tradition that uses both developmental and discovery strategies. Considered mother of Tibetan Buddhism, she is the female exemplar of enlightenment. Her essence is in her wisdom and potential to appear in various guises. Her female body and her rituals' explicit emphasis on womb and vulva act as symbols of enlightenment and welcome women into the divine circle in ways that the male figures do not. She has one face and two arms, and the color of her body is red. Naked, her feet evenly on the ground with one foot forward, an expression of great passion and a laughing face. Yese Sowo embodies the possibility of manifesting one's complete physical and mental potential. This evolutionary non-dualism is how practitioners of Tibetan Buddhism expect to evolve into their own enlightenment, a state that fully emulates and is entirely equivalent to the experience of the great blissqueen. She is the prototype of the successful spiritual seeker who overcomes dualistic tendencies that impede simultaneous awareness of the self and others. Assumed the status of a deity, the Queen of the Great Bliss stands as a luminous red presence, free from the constraints represented by clothing, exuberant with her dancing posture, smiling face, and rhythmic drum. Bnesie lived from 757 to 814. Her name means Ocean of Primordial Wisdom. According to myth, she was born under miraculous circumstances, similar to Buddha's birth. Sanskrit mantra was sounding as her mother gave birth painlessly. In Tibet, she is considered a reincarnation of Buddha's mother. As the princess of the Kachin king, she prayed for the happiness of all sentient beings as a young girl. At age 16, she was initiated into Buddhism, based on Tantric tradition by Padmasambhava, the Vajrayana Buddhist guru, credited with bringing Buddhism from India to Tibet, who was miraculously born in the middle of a lotus flower. She achieved a level of enlightenment equal to his after years of diligent study. As she grew up, she was sought after by a multitude of suitors. A specially convened council declared that only established monarchs would be considered worthy candidates, but she wanted to remain free of marriage altogether and escaped. Eventually, Bnesie was given to marriage to the emperor, King Trisongha Dasen, who greatly encouraged growth of Buddhism in Tibet. She then took on the role as consort and biography of Padmasambhava. All the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism are said to be contained in Bnesie's life story. Buddhist traditions are concerned with overcoming various kinds of dualism in the same way women are concerned with overcoming the dualism of their status in Western society. Tibetan literature on the Great Bliss Queen provides a vantage point on the architecture of duality and the passage through it. Some major dualisms include active-passive, reason-emotion, and mind-body. Dualities exist in both traditional thought and in contemporary feminist reflection. In Buddhism, there are forms that view enlightenment as only being discovered and not developed, or focus on the process of becoming enlightened, emphasizing the distinction between who one is and who one will become. The divide that exists in the feminist movement is the one between celebrating the fact of womanhood and distancing oneself from it, or minimizing womanhood's significance in one's construction of selfhood. The Great Bliss Queen ritual takes a fresh look at one's own potential. Klein says that meeting the Great Bliss Queen is meeting oneself. Bnesie is not a goddess, matriarch, or role model who automatically affirms or embodies the female character, especially the Western female character. A genuine encounter with the Queen requires awareness of the different cultural dialogues that shape Buddhist and feminist orientations and the distinctive constructions of personhood and womanhood they produce. As mentioned earlier, the commonality between feminist reflection and Tibetan Buddhist tradition is the question of selfhood and subjectivity, as well as the interdependence of theory and experience. Bnesie brings together the essential elements of the Tibetan Buddhist teaching and feminist theory based on the views of selfhood and identity to contribute to one's experiencing non-dualism in the Great Bliss Queen ritual. The Western construction of the self came to be understood as individual unity with a separate existence independent of place in society. Individualism emphasizes the separateness of persons rather than their connection. According to Klein, a Western woman carries both dominant Western assumptions about selfhood and individuality and her own reservations about those assumptions. The Tibetan Buddhist construction of the self reflected on the internalization of two different perspectives: the socially embedded shamanic sensibility stemming from the earliest phase of Tibetan culture, and the individualistic sensibility associated with the rise of Buddhism. The emphasis is on continuity rather than origin, and emptiness and selflessness are the most essential qualities of people in the sense that they are inviolable and always present. The interpretation of the self as non-dualistically conceived serves as middle path between essentialism and